This Notebook LM video explores a fascinating biblical paradox. Ephesians says Christ gave teachers to equip believers, while Jeremiah promises that everyone will know God directly. These truths work together. Teachers are not gatekeepers, but guides, helping believers grow in the relationship they already have with God. Leadership is serving rather than controlling.
Have you ever been reading the Bible and come across two ideas that seem to say the exact opposite thing? Well, today we're diving into a really fascinating one. It's a puzzle that puts the need for spiritual teachers right up against the promise that one day we won't need them at all. So let's jump in and try to figure this out. So check this out. On one hand, you've got the New Testament in Ephesians, which says that Christ himself gave teachers to the church. But then you flip back to the Old Testament prophet Jeremiah, and he talks about a time when no one will need to teach their neighbor. So what gives? Do we need them or not?
Now, it's easy to just look at that and say, well, that's a flat-out contradiction. Maybe a mistake, right? But what if it's not a mistake at all? What if this tension is actually pointing us toward a much deeper truth about faith, about how we learn, and what community is really for? That's what we're going to unpack.
Okay, so to get to the bottom of this, let's tackle the first piece of the puzzle. We're going to jump into the book of Ephesians and really look at this powerful case for spiritual leadership. So, the idea here in Ephesians is that after Jesus ascended, he gave these, gifts to the church. And get this, the gifts weren't things, they were people. And the point wasn't to set up some kind of top-down power structure, not at all. It was about providing the tools for the entire community to grow strong. You might have heard this called the fivefold ministry. It basically breaks down into 5 key roles. You've got apostles, who are like foundational messengers, prophets, who proclaim what God is saying, evangelists, who share the good news, and then you have pastors and teachers, who are all about shepherding the community and instructing them well. Each one plays a really vital part. But here's the thing, and this is so important to get. The whole point was not to create a situation where a few special people do all the ministry and everyone else just sits back and watches. No way. That's a complete misunderstanding of the entire concept.
Instead, what you see is a clear process, kind of like a chain reaction. First, Christ provides these gifted leaders. Second, their main job is to equip, to train and empower all the believers for their own work. And as that happens, the whole community gets built up, moving together toward maturity. You see, it's a system of empowerment.
So what's the end game? Well, it isn't about creating a bunch of individual spiritual superstars. It's about the health of the whole group. The goal is unity, a deep and real knowledge of Jesus, and a kind of maturity that the entire community shares. So the leaders aren't the destination, they're the vehicle to get everyone there together. All right, so that's a pretty strong case for why teachers are a gift. But now we've got to flip the coin and look at the other side of this paradox. Let's head back to the prophet Jeremiah and this absolutely stunning promise he made about something called the New Covenant. And this is where things get really interesting. Jeremiah prophesies about a day when everyone, from the least to the greatest, will have a direct personal knowledge of God. You won't need to teach your neighbor and say, "Know the Lord," because, they already will. I mean, that's a total game changer. This promise is the absolute heart of what the Bible calls the New Covenant. Think of it as a whole new deal, a fundamental shift in how humanity relates to God. It's a move away from external rules to an internal guide, something written directly on our hearts and minds. Just look at the contrast here. The old way involved laws on stone tablets, external stuff. Access to God was limited. You had to go through a special group of priests. But the New Covenant flips that script completely. The law becomes internal, knowledge becomes direct, and access is for everybody. We really have to pause and appreciate how revolutionary this idea was. It's basically the democratization of divine knowledge. It removes the need for institutional gatekeepers. It says that every single person can have an immediate, personal relationship with God. That is huge. So here we are. We've got two powerful ideas that seem to totally contradict each other. One says we need teachers to equip us. The other says we won't need them because we'll all know God directly. So how do we solve this? Well, this is the fun part. This is where it all clicks. So let's just put the question out there one more time, plain and simple. Do we need teachers or do we all know God directly? Which one is it? The answer is yes, to both. They aren't contradictory at all. In fact, they work together perfectly. You see, the new covenant doesn't eliminate teachers, it fundamentally changes their job description.
And it all comes down to this massive shift from being a gatekeeper to being an equipper. In the old model, a leader might have been seen as a gatekeeper who mediated access, creating dependency. But in the new covenant, a leader's job isn't to give you access, you already have it. Their job is to help you grow in the access you've been given. The goal is fostering maturity, not creating dependency.
And this is the key that unlocks the whole paradox. Teachers in this new reality don't dispense secret knowledge that only they possess, they're guides. They help us articulate, understand, and apply what the Holy Spirit is already revealing to each one of us directly. They're cultivators, not controllers.
So, why does sorting out this ancient puzzle matter for us right now? Well, the implications are huge for how we think about our own faith and how we function as a community.
So here's the bottom line. It means every single believer has direct access to God. The Holy Spirit is our primary live-in teacher. That means leadership is fundamentally about service and empowerment, never about control. It means real growth comes from that internal transformation, and that the community is there to encourage and build on the work that God is already doing in each person.
This really sums it up perfectly. The beauty of this whole thing is its accessibility. God isn't distant, waiting behind a bunch of gatekeepers. He's made himself known and available to every single one of us through the Spirit.
And that leaves us with one last really crucial question to chew on. If the role of leaders is to equip, not just to perform, then what does that mean for the rest of us? How does that change our role? It shifts us from being a passive audience to being active participants in building up our community, suggesting that every single one of us has a part to play.